Good morning, everybody. Chris Franks with TexasWest Capital. We got the Sultan of Sats, Tillman Holloway, and the Bald Santa Claus, Andrew Parrish, here with me today. Oh my God, look at that. There it goes. There it goes.
Oh,
He's
wow.
got the
My wife calls me her little pudgy penguin. That's what
I doubt there's much little about you.
That is way too much information.
Oh man, how are you guys doing, man? It's been an eventful week. You know, we had Saylor. I think this is second week in a row. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, Andrew, but he's bought another $1 billion for 2 weeks in a row now, I think.
Yeah, Andy's hanging out at Morgan Stanley's headquarters in New York City, so that's of interest. Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, the reality is that we've got structured product that's just gonna absolutely flood the market. Bitcoin structured product in 2026. So it makes sense that he's trying to stay ahead of it. And get some of the money that's going to be funneled into structured product into his structured products. So lots going on there.
Yeah. What else do we got? We got Mike McGlone out there, the Bloomberg analyst, saying, you know what? Bitcoin's going to 10,000, sucker. See you there, right?
I hope it does. That's 10x the buying power that I had at 100. What are you talking about? If that ain't a force multiplier, here's my point. Here, and I'm being a little tongue in cheek there, but I really am not. Unless Bitcoin in that same thesis goes to zero, who cares? Unless you think if you think that Bitcoin's never going to reach its peak again, like it's never going to go past 126, we've reached the all-time Bitcoin peak, then you should sell because you do have limited upside against the relative downside. And the downside could go to 10,000, which means, you could lose 80-90% of your stack. That's not a good relative risk to reward ratio. But I'll tell you what is a good relative to risk to reward ratio is that there's a simple ratio that is the number of dollars that are printed in the world and the number of Bitcoin that exist. This number is going down with every day that passes. No, Tillman, it's a fixed supply. Yeah, it is, assuming that we live in a vacuum and people aren't stupid and don't lose their Bitcoin. Lots of people lose their Bitcoin. It's a limited supply that's dwindling. And then you have on the increasing side, the numerator is how many dollar bills are being printed. That is the price of Bitcoin. Cool. So any price fluctuation that you see from 10,000 to 90,000 to 100,000, you're just looking at a very, very small segment of the chart. Zoom out and realize that Bitcoin people got in at $1, $9, $12, $100, 1,000, like the list goes on and on of people who thought at that time. I'll tell you what a risky time to get into Bitcoin was, and I was in it. $1,200. Yeah, $1,200 was you talk about a barn burner pull down, a drawback. It went to $1,200. It cracked 1,000. Everybody was euphoric. Oh my gosh, Bitcoin's $1,000. Goes up to 1,200, and that sucker drops to $80 in like 3 days. I mean, it was just the game's over. Turn out the lights, go home. The party's done. Everybody, you're a loser if you didn't sell at the top. So it's one of those things like Bitcoin continues to do these same things over and over and over again. And it doesn't have any relative knowledge of what the price is. It's really just measuring about the liquidity in the markets and the free capital that wants to find a home in risk on assets. Like that's really what it amounts to. And if that equation continues to grow on one side, which is the printing press side, Bitcoin's price is going to continue to grow. And so if it drops to 10,000, great, I'll buy everything I can. I'll be more aggressive than I am now. You know what I mean? And why would I say that? Well, because the probability of it going to 1,000 is lower than it going back up to 126. And a 12.6xer sounds pretty good. That sounds awesome to me.
There are levels of, and I'm trying to be respectful here, there are levels to misguided, wherever McGlone is on this, different levels, right? So we went from 69K down to 13K when effectively 60% of the leaders, 70% of the leaders in Bitcoin and crypto were a fraud. Okay. So Sam Bankman-Fried, Do Kwon, Luna,
Capital.
yeah, all sorts of stuff. Levered, all the way up.
Napster, LimeWire.
We never even got to 10,000 then. We never got to 10,000 then, right? We got to 13,000, but we never got to 10,000. So that's one level of looking at it. Like if you're going to get to 10,000, that probably would have been a moment where you got to 10,000. Nope, didn't happen. And then the other part of it is that just in the past 12 months, we've had BlackRock put out papers. You can say something on a show and somehow people will forget it. You can't put something in company documents on either a quarterly report or in an annual report that you want all your clients to read and then take that back, right? So BlackRock has compared the rise of Bitcoin to the mortgage market and the beginning of the mortgage market and where it'll go. They have compared Bitcoin to the dollar, and is Bitcoin potentially a threat to the dollar over time? They have built a product that is their most successful full product in terms of launch, and then is their highest dollar product in terms of money that is made off any product inside of that organization.
Let me add one that I think is as compelling as any of them. If I give you a loan and I'm willing to take something that you own as collateral, I must think a lot about that collateral, or I wouldn't take it as collateral.
Right.
And they're all saying we want Bitcoin and Ethereum as collateral against loans. That's all I need to hear. That tells me they want those assets and they want me to default on them. No different than, anything else that's collateral. If I give you, a $10,000 loan and you hand me the keys to a 1986 Pinto that's rusted out, I'm not taking that as collateral against a $10,000 loan. But if you hand me a Ferrari, I'll take that as collateral against that all day. And what's my hope? That you don't pay me back the 10 grand and I get to keep your Ferrari. That's the nature of lending, right?
Larry has even talked about, price predictions, that if, portfolios get to 1 to 3% at large of Bitcoin exposure, that Bitcoin's going to 500 to 700K. Like, collect all of that stuff, right? Collect all of that stuff. And the fact that we didn't get back down to 10K when the market absolutely imploded in 2022. And, it's hard for me to understand the thesis that McGlone is working off of to get back to 10K. I know it's catchy. I know it's take a zero off of 100K. He's been on this for a while, but given those truths, how do you get there? It's very, very difficult to get there based on the absolute.
I can tell you the only way I can think
the wall of capital that exists behind.
He's not, but that's all fundamental knowledge. The only way I can think he's getting there is that he's got some really crazy lines that he's drawn on the charts that make him convince him that he's a genius. That's a very common syndrome in stock market trading, is like you draw the magic line, and when the price reacts to the line, you literally believe it.
He's been really bearish on Bitcoin for quite a while, if I'm not mistaken. So, when we're in markets, that bias that, that's going to, people don't. I think the biggest thing, and he's a professional analyst there with Bloomberg, but human beings.
Is he a fundamentalist or is he a technical?
Yeah, he's just
trader?
not some guy on Twitter that's drawing lines and has a funny looking avatar. Like he's employed by Bloomberg as a senior commodity analyst. So, you know, I mean,
but here's the tell though, you know, as human beings, most don't, you know, just accept, okay, maybe we were wrong, right? Most of the time as human beings, we, no matter what it is, we tend to double down when we're wrong, and we double down again, right? It's like we just can't let go. But that affects, I mean, that's not something that magically goes away just because you have a position as an analyst, you know, as a high paid analyst at some firm or something.
You know, well, that makes sense. I've doubled down a few times in life when it comes to marriage. So maybe now I get it with Mike. Maybe that makes sense. I can see it now in my own. Okay.
Listen, I look at it mathematically. Okay, the most certain thing I can tell you about Bitcoin is that it's at 86,679.93. That's the only thing anybody knows.
Yeah.
The price of Bitcoin, or what do you even define a price as? Are you defining a price as a wick? Are you defining a price as meaningful closing volume? Are you defining price as the closing candle, where you close? Like, what are you defining as those? Like, those words mean a lot to different people. If I show you a wick down candle and you're judging yourself based upon your ability to get a bunch of position down at the bottom of the wick where no volume happened, then you're not even judging yourself on a game you can win. You are destined to failure. And so there's just lots of little things about trading like that, that if you aren't talking to other people and comparing notes, there's a lot of confirmation bias that you can build on your ego sometimes. But even if you have the purest of hearts, just on circumstance, like you know, I tell people all the time, and I really believe this: the worst thing that can happen to a trader, and I mean the worst, is that they make money on a bad trade.
Especially when they first start, when they first come in, they make money on a trade, and then they think, oh my God, I know what I'm doing.
And let me give you the equivalent of that decision, right? I got kids. The younger they are, the less they understand about risk. So if you give them any odds, they don't care about the relative payout, and they'll take the underdog because they just have an underdog spirit. Whereas the more you mature, you realize, like, if you're going to take the underdog, you should be getting paid for that risk, right? And so that is what gambling is about. Like, that's a full-blown, you know, multi-billion-dollar, if not trillion-dollar industry. So, you know, odds of things happening are all about, that's the game of life, right? And so this guy's taking a bet. He's saying that the odds are that the price is going to go down to 10,000. Well, God bless him. Man, that is a ballsy position. Why? Well, because it's a hell of a lot lower than 86,635. It means that there has to be a standard deviation. I don't know what that is, but whoa, that's an anomaly. So he either knows something we don't know, and he's a genius, or he wants to make radical claims that are anomaly claims so that he gets a lot of clicks and a lot of people engaging. I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know who this guy is. Honestly, I don't obviously follow him. So I don't know what his stance is.
Let me ask you guys this then. So, you know, I've been talking for a while now about the hyper financialization. You know, we're getting RWAs, tokenize everything, right? What does that mean? You know, and government popping in, or the Fed popping in more and more liquidity. And what does that mean? And so, you know, generally speaking, it means that you're going to have a lot more money just sitting out there looking for places to go. In comes the prediction markets. I think it was Andrew here that posted something about a year from now, prediction markets.
They'll be everywhere.
Yeah, be everywhere, right?
Every TradFi brokerage will have them. Maybe not the legacy ones, but they may have them as an adjunct to their online presence, right? So E-Trade, which is owned by Morgan Stanley, will end up having a prediction market connected to it. Schwab will. Everybody will have a prediction market to it because it's been approved effectively, right? Like prediction market, I find that pretty funny. It's just gambling, right?
Steroids, right?
It's no different than trading options or whatever, that this is a 6-to-1 shot that this happens. If it happens, I'm going to make 10 grand on my 1 grand on this particular option play. Or, you know what, I got a 10-to-1 shot that, President Trump mentions something on his speech later tonight. Like, it's not really all that different.
Well, here's the truth. You got to, I always have this saying in the back of my mind to follow the money, right? We've all heard it. There's an economic incentive that is too big to ignore. Robinhood CEO Vlad bets on prediction market super cycle with new sports focused event contracts. Robinhood's in the game, right? So to you guys' point, like, the users have spoken. They love crypto. They love betting. They love the option of trying to get rich. And why? Well, because we have like a lot of celebrities that have glorified that. Dave Portnoy, or however you say his last name.
Yeah, that's really well done. Nice
Did
job.
I say that all right? Andrew
right.
makes fun of me because I say his last name all the time wrong. But
he usually adds an R at the end. It's
yeah, there's an R in there or something. But the bottom line is, like, there's a lot of glorification of those types of things, and so there is a in the back of everyone's mind. I think that's how I get to the first rung of the ladder type of a mentality, and it makes sense if you think about. I always look at these exchanges that are traditional exchanges, and I bet their CEOs and their COOs are sitting around in their boardroom looking at the net profits, the public documents attached to Coinbase, and how much money they make in volume of trades and the fees attached to crypto trading. And I bet you they are just licking their lips going, this is like the glory days of stock trading. This is like back when we were, at the bell of the ball, as the bell of the ball. And so I just think that you're chasing customers at this point, and the population of the world is so big, and that, amount of liquidity that's floating around, in the hundreds of millions of people that want these types of products and these types of avenues for betting. I think it's only growing. And so this is an adaptation to the natural law of markets, right?
So here's my question then. Do you guys think that, as Bitcoin is obviously becoming more mature, it's now becoming the belle of Wall Street, right? You've got everybody like Saylor and whatnot buying Bitcoin. And so what was just a few years ago really was just a retail thing has become much more institutionalized. Do you think that maybe a lot of those who were trading crypto, trading alts, they're hating life right now because alts have done so bad? Do you think maybe they just kind of move on toward the prediction markets?
Yeah, I think that, you try everything until you get burned by it. When you're at that stage, you're buying lottery tickets until you realize you're not going to win that. You go to the, racetrack until you realize you're not going to do that. You try to be a professional poker player until that is a fast money market, right? Where people are taking their paychecks and they're betting them every week on the newest way in which and I don't blame them. Like, I understand the mentality, because at a certain wage level, you can't make ends meet. And so the side hustle becomes a matter of how much time do you have left to dedicate to it. So if your main job has you working, ridiculous hours, chef, restaurant people work crazy hours, like late cleaning, like all that. Well, what options do you have? You're like, you don't even have time to mail your bills in, what options do you have in your side hustle? You can't mow lawns. You can't go do any manual labor because you don't have it in you. So you look to things that are like this, that you can sit on your couch and you can try to make some extra cash. And I think that, and that's only going to continue to think about the middle class disappearing as we know it has.
Yeah.
What was the middle class's mantra? Slow growth. We'll save until we're rich, and we'll earn money on our interest. And it was like the prudent long-term Warren Buffett mode. that generation's gone. Those people, one of two things happened to those people. They either made it to the top tier or they got eaten up by cost of living in inflation. And they either, but the gap between the middle class and the wealthy is bigger than ever. And so think about it, you've got more people trying to chase making ends meet than ever before. And that's why you see so many, I think scams out there.
It's the reason why the movie Dumb Money is much, much more important than we think it is, because the meat of that movie is college kids, a DoorDash driver, a guy in his basement who's also an insurance salesman, and a guy that's working at GameStop, all trying to do something other than their current vocation to make money and get a leg up. Another woman's a nurse, right? Who's trying to get a leg up. That is the nature of everything that we're talking about. That's the nature of crypto retail. That's the nature of the growth of prediction markets. It's the nature of the growth of DraftKings, FanDuel, and everything in between. It's because of the reality in that movie that all the money was made on options, because if you're running some call options, that's where you go from $1,000 to $4,000 to $500,000 in your Robinhood account, because the stock moved from 100 to 400.
But they actually want to bring the guys like Steve will do it, and I don't even want to promote him, but he is very famous now. I mean, he's rubbing elbows with the president of the United States, literally. And this guy has made his entire living on YouTube making gambling, glorifying gambling. I mean, he's got $5 million car collection, and is betting with Dana White at the biggest steak table in the private room. That culture is now, even the sneaker culture is a byproduct of this mentality, right? Why? Yeah. How many, Mike? I got 3 boys. Andrew, you've got kids.
Mm-hmm.
My reels have these sneakerhead reels now on them where they're at these sneaker conferences, and now people are flipping coins. So let's just say I've got a pair of sneakers that are worth 10 grand, which is ludicrous for me to even say, but that's not even the expensive ones. Some of them are $30,000-$40,000 pair of Nike collab sneakers with some rapper.
Yeah.
Let's just say I've got that pair. The hottest thing, and go test this, go look on YouTube, you'll see tens of thousands of videos, is teenagers have saved up every penny of their life savings to acquire this set of sneakers. And now they want the glamour of the clip with a famous sneakerhead. So they go to these sneaker cons and they go, let's flip for it. So let's say the sneakers are worth 10 grand. Andrew, you're the famous sneakerhead sitting behind the table that's made a lot of money on the back of these gambles. And you go, well, you know what? I'll give you 15K, but 0 if I win. So it's 0 or 15K. And these kids are flipping for $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 coin flips. And that's what we have now. And that's only going to grow because those kids are going to only get older and have more money to play with. You know what I mean? Like, that is the future. And it honestly, I said this to myself as I was thinking about the show today. We're headed towards like a Mad Max combination with the Pinocchio Boys Town amusement park. It's gonna be crazy what you can do, what you can bet on here in the near future. You talk about parlays. I bet you can have parlays across multiple markets. I bet that this sports team's going to win, and today's Bitcoin price will close above this level and this, and I get the multiplier effect from the house because of the odds maker. I mean,
so, again, coming back to the movie Dumb Money, right? So you have a large part of the regular populace that was involved in that movie. The dumb money, right? Were two girls that were in college and they were, betting on GameStop and on their Robinhood accounts. That is the perfect sort of word picture for a bunch of other things that have happened, right? So you're going to college, which we all know is, has turned into a somewhat limited in terms of your options after you get out of college, right? There was this, contract with people that went to college 30, 40, 50 years ago. You go to college, get a good degree from a good school, going to have a good job. That's no longer the case now. College, generally speaking, you end up with a lot of debt, hope for the best when you get out. So there's that. So that type of idea, coupled with the fact that those that were doing the GameStop thing figured out in real time that, this game is rigged too, right? So I thought I was figuring it out and doing something. This game is rigged too. My college experience is actually rigged. I paid more and more and more every single year that I went to college and incurred more and more debt. Now I can't find a job, which again is why under 25 voters voted as a plurality, especially men, for Donald Trump, and were a big reason why he won so big at the end of 2024, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's a collection of things that have happened that I think are, meaningful in terms of where do we go from here, right?
Well, it's borderline financial hopelessness, and that leads to a lot of bad decisions, and that leads to a lot of casinos when regulation allows a lot of casinos to be propped up on every corner, which is essentially what this is. When I was a kid, sports betting was illegal in every state other than a few.
Illegal, period. It's just legal.
and technology let that cat out of the bag. And I think it is almost impossible, if not impossible, to put it back in. So I don't blame society for gravitating towards this. It's kind of like being caught up in an avalanche. You're gonna go downhill. I guess the question becomes is really how regulated the industry has to become and who are the players in it, because it reminds me of like the online poker days. I don't know if you guys ever played online poker, but I did in college a lot, and it was really great until people started cheating. The money got so big that employees of the the platforms themselves were like cheating, and all sorts of stuff came out, and it killed the industry. Like nobody plays online anymore. Why? Because you can't trust it. There's no way to trust it. Well, blockchain may change that, right? And so blockchain may be the perfect solution of technological control that is needed and governance that's needed. And DAOs would be a perfect example of this. Like, at any given point in time, whoever owns the casino chips has the liability, right? The casino chips are the counterparty risk. If the casino goes out of business between the time you redeem, those casino chips are just clay chips that have their out of business logo on it. And so that is the point of contention as it pertains to the house being the house. But if you did a DAO, for example, where the casino chips were tokens that were democratized and you could access them through some sort of public offering like the Monad on Coinbase, for example, and you had lots and lots of people owning those, and you gave governance rights to those people. Well, those people have a vested interest in voting for their interests, and they are the quote casino owners. And the value of those tokens would be the value of the yield generated, and all the votes would be geared towards raising the yield, right? And so, if you created, I definitely see gambling being a decentralized endeavor here in the very near future, and that probably would be a massive improvement to what we have currently.
At some point, we'll find ourselves on this show in 2 to 3 years talking about the fact that a prediction markets ETF has been approved. Because 3 years ago, if you'd have told us, or 3.5 years ago, if you'd have said that there was going to be a Dogecoin ETF, everybody on the planet would say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. There's no way that's going to happen. And we have those. Those have been approved. There's several of them. Several of them.
You love that. That's that TradFi bone in you that's talking. I would couple that with, I think there's going to be a decentralized casino that will be equally as liquid, if you will, as it's no different than pump fund. Look at how many billions of dollars flowed through pump fund. In the heyday, it was like $18 billion a week. That's a big casino. That's a lot of money. And I think there's a big thirst for that. And I think people, so, what's wrong? Pump Fund tried to launch their own token and do all, blah, it's still centralized. You still have to trust the people that they don't want to make money and live in big mansions, which isn't the case, right? So at the end of the day, the only way to have a casino built by the people for the people and to actually trust the table rules are to have a decentralized casino, which would be, not for me and what I would want to build because of how hard it would be from a regulatory perspective. But man, that would be a powerful, powerful thing.
Real quickly, pivoting back to McGlone, this is one thing that I forgot, and it was said actually this week by, again, Larry Fink, that nation states are buying the Bitcoin dip. Nation states are buying the Bitcoin dip. And McGlone thinks, I'll ignore that one. I'm not going to add that to my analysis.
I don't even know who that is. Again, it doesn't matter. But
he's on Macro Monday with Scott Melker every Monday.
He's a senior Bloomberg analyst of some sort.
He works at Bloomberg. I mean, not that.
Hey, again, it would be interesting to find out why he thinks that, but it's an anomaly price prediction. Humans and markets prices can intersect. It doesn't mean they actually know what they're talking about. The market doesn't hear his prediction is, I guess, the point. And we say this in the Bitcoin space, like Bitcoin doesn't care what you think about Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't care about nation states talking about buying and all the publicity. Bitcoin, it's a network. Like, it just cares about the technical inputs that are going through the network.
Again, Larry Fink doesn't say out loud for people to put on repeat, nation states are buying the dip on Bitcoin, unless it's true, because if it comes out that was a lie and it's not true, I mean, he's not putting himself in that position, guys. Yeah. There's no way he does that. You talk about, risk management. Larry's probably reasonably good at it, both from a reputational standpoint and in terms of being a fiduciary of the company he started called BlackRock. So it is, it's interesting. The moment that we're in with Bitcoin being at 80 and change, I wonder what the denouement, so to speak, 18 months from now is going to be on what's really underneath it all, right? Like, what's really underneath it all? You see a million posts about this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, ETFs are happening, all this is happening, but Bitcoin's going down, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing, that's what my point is. Like, you're looking at Larry Fink and going, he's a market maker. He's saying these things. Fundamentally, those things must be true. I would agree with you 100%. I'm on your team on that front. That's the total hash rate graph of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't need Larry Fink's opinion. Right. I can see technical usage, and I can go, more cars on the freeway. I wonder how valuable the real estate is next to the freeway. If I'm driving down a highway every day and I see millions of cars going up and down the highway, I can tell you the real estate next to that highway is really valuable. And that's the same with Bitcoin. Is I can tell you based upon the hash rate, and I can tell you based upon the use of the technology itself, that we've never been in a better spot. We literally are on the beginning of a parabolic curve. What does
Yeah.
that tell you? It tells you, holy crap, how high could this thing go? That's the question we all should be asking ourselves.
Well,
And we should be asking ourselves, all this paper that's being created to try to control that chart is going to fail. Any leverage position against a parabolic curve, good luck. You might be a genius or you might be broke, but those are your odds of arriving at either one of those bus stations are very high. You're either a James Wynn in this environment or, you're a James Wynn.
So the point I was trying to make
You're a
is,
pre-James Wynn, post-James Wynn in this environment, right?
the point I was trying to make is that, you know, TradFi, the wealth management space, institutional money is just started, right? It's honestly just started. Like, when was the last time Michael Saylor took a picture at Morgan Stanley's world headquarters in Manhattan? Never, just today, right? So the growth and scale of where we're headed and the pool of money that Bitcoin is now finding its way into is so vast that we've never experienced it before. And so that's the point that I'm making, is that you know, we used to talk about innings with Bitcoin. What inning are we in? It said 2017, 15, where we're not even in the first inning. Well, we're kind of in the first or second inning with TradFi's involvement with Bitcoin, right? We're just now getting there. And so the organizations themselves want to get their mind and all their ducks in a row, and then they'll start again offering structured products. So JP Morgan has already done one, right? Well, what ends up happening? Why is Michael Saylor at Morgan Stanley today? Well, Morgan Stanley is a significant competitor to JP Morgan, right? So Morgan Stanley watches what JP Morgan does and said, okay, wait, stop. We've got to figure something out. So we offer a product or products as well, so our customers' money doesn't move over to JP Morgan if they want access to that type of structured product. Yeah. That's how this goes. And it picks up steam, and then away you go. There's 57 different types of structured products to choose from all these different places by the end of next year. No different than a Bitcoin ETF gets approved in January of 2024. It's December of 2025. I don't know how many crypto ETFs exist now. A lot, right? Same thing. Same thing's going to happen.
Fibo says, thoughts on household net worth holding more equities than real estate now. History shows that it could be an ugly bear market.
Yeah.
Diversifications would be my opinion. You know, there's nothing. I like to hold all of it, and then I don't have to be right. I just wait to be right on one of them, and I sell into profits, and I buy into weakness. I mean, it's like housing to me could go the other way. I think if interest rates go down, if we get a rate cut, which I anticipate, obviously, I think most people do here, next one, and then we get multiple rate cuts next year, we should see a massive increase in home values, I would anticipate. And so, you know, could be a nice wave to ride. In fact, some of the smartest real estate guys I know are right now saying we're on the cusp of generational wealth being created on the real estate front. So, you know, pick your poison. I tend to just go, try to have a little bit of everything, and then you don't have to play genius. You just literally wait until one, like, do you know how many people that I know have been talking about silver going parabolic for frickin' 40 years? It's insane. And guess what? They're finally right. But the relative opportunity cost that they had on that trade, trying to be over allocated in that position, cost them a lot of money that now, yes, they're making up for, but you could have just you didn't have to wait 40 years.
Right. Right.
Because everything has cycles of popping. So the more you have diversified, the shorter the interval of pop that you have to wait for. Does that make sense? The more
Yeah.
popcorn kernels you have in the pan, the more often you're going to hear one popping. That's the bottom line. And you just start scraping off the ones that are popping.
Yeah, I think he was just kind of pointing out, that usually, historically, when we get to this point where households are holding more in terms of stocks, and equities rather than real estate, it turns out pretty bad. And I think that's what he was saying, just kind of pointing that out here and saying, hey, listen, we're here again. Do we think that follows through again this time, or does it, does it do something different? And my only thought on that, again, goes back to, again, the scariest thing, you can say in the markets is this time it's different, but effectually it has been different since, since COVID. The way in which the Fed moves now, the way in which the Fed
for sure.
liquidity in the market is much different now.
Not only COVID, but since the great financial crisis, right? The entire structure of the markets and financial systems were adjusted because of all of that. An ugly bear market, the last time that happened, it was COVID, and it was quite possibly the most neck snapping V-shaped recovery we've ever seen. Whereas you've got to go back to the great financial crisis for any more elongated quote unquote bear market or recession. And again, liquidity was pumped so heavily into that proverbial valley that, if you were afraid to invest in 2009 or 2010, you missed 50%, 60% to the upside. And so people with the capital to be able to invest or stay invested have been taught those lessons. They've learned those lessons. And it's why you don't see enormous dips in the market like one would expect, because people just believe. They've been taught. Anybody that's my age or older, they've been taught, it's been absolutely bashed into their brains that they never sell positions that are quality positions. And if anything, if there's a 20% move down or a 25% move down, you should be adding to that position. By the way, we currently have, if not the most, or potentially it's either the most of all time or it's right up there in the most of all time, the most money in money markets in the United States ever. It's trillions of dollars, right? Yep. Now, collectively, it's because you're, generally speaking, getting paid a pretty good rate on it because interest rate's a bit high. But that's a marker as well. So if markets go significantly down, there's a ton of dry powder on the sidelines, like the most ever, frankly.
More than 7 trillion.
Yeah. So there are different parts of the market that, generally speaking, people in crypto just aren't aware of, right? Because crypto folks aren't the world's greatest risk managers and keep an enormous amount of dry powder. We generally ape in at all times for everything. But in the real world and in different, the rest of the 90% of finance, we've got money market balances at generational highs. So it's that
some of the crypto guys don't sell them too short. They I was talking to a guy in 2017 that was just killing it in the altcoins, just killing it. And I mean, just crushing. And I said, how are you doing it? And he said, well, I look at it like the craps table, and I got to get my chips on every number. And once I get my chips on every number, I press all the action into the numbers that haven't hit. I said, give me an example of that. And he said, well, I came up with a budget that I wanted to spend on the altcoins. I did it early enough to where I was in at the bottom of the market cycle. One of them would pop. I would take the profits from that and roll it into one that hadn't popped. And that one would pop. And I'd take the profits and roll it. And he would and so it looked like magic, like he was picking the winner every time. But he really wasn't. He just had a bet on every horse, and they just kept running around the track, and he'd parlay the wins into the next horse. And the risk reward that early in the game was paying disproportionate odds. So the house was actually broken. You could bet on every horse, and it only took one horse to win, and you paid for all your bets, right? So he realized that, and he just was disciplined in his approach, is really what it amounts to. So, some of the crypto guys are old TradFi guys, and they know the methods of diversification and how it helps, and especially in really risky markets. And crypto has been de-risked a lot, but it's still risky.
Yeah, but that's the exception to the rule, right? I mean, let's be honest. Most people in crypto are very much just, they wear this degen proud badge, badge proudly, and YOLO and jump in and ape into everything.
It's both degen, but a case could be made that it's conviction too, right? Like it's one side of the same coin, right? You could be a degen, or are you just fully committed to whatever your strategy is, right? There are people that I know that I consider to be, well thought out in terms of where their finances are at and where they're headed and why. And they have, 60-70% of their portfolio in Bitcoin, right? You take that to a, UBS advisor in New Albany, Ohio, and they'll be like, this is insane. What are you doing? We gotta fix this, right? But for them, it's a conviction that they've thought of, and they think that they've managed for, and that's the way they want to go about it. So,
well, and if you have an edge in that, then you absolutely can build in any area. I know guys that have multi-million-dollar like memorabilia collections, and guess what? They got an edge in it. And let me tell you something: they got people beating their door down to buy that crap all the time for insane amounts of money, more than I would ever think. But they understand that market, and they become a master of that.
For the Beanie Babies, huh, Tillman?
Listen, I will tell you this. It's no different than trading meme coins, but there's hold risk in the fact that most of it are physical goods that you got to hold. But, there's a lot of examples of people. And Andrew, I'll speak to a near and dear to your heart subject matter, but the Porsche community is guilty of this more than any community. Y'all pay stupid money for stupid stuff that means nothing outside of your community to anyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, think about it. It's like, I got the one that makes me smell like gasoline when I get out. Oh man, you're so lucky. How much did you have to pay? $3 million. Oh, you got it for a steal.
Yeah.
That's substantial.
It is to that point, right? Like, communities create value, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's my point.
Yeah, and the size and the commitment of that community creates additional value, right? Yeah. Like in the 911 Porsche community, it's well known that if you get a GT car and that GT car has a manual transmission, the value of that car is 20 to 40% more than any normal 911. And we'll hold that value literally forever. And again, it works. You can go, Google or Grok or whatever, what supercars or luxury sport cars hold their value. None of them do, except 911s, unless they are a $2 million Ferrari, right? Or a $1.5 million Aston Martin that they only made 107 of, right? So it's same thing with.
And most of those values that are being held, there's always, again, I know a lot of the guys that are in this space, you being one of them, but You have a very narrow vertical of knowledge, but you remember old. I won't say the name, but he was a big Aston Martin guy, and he
Yeah.
got all the top allocations. And I said to him, like, "What's the buyback amount on these?" And he goes, "Oh, I make money on all of them." And I said, "Oh, really? How do you sell them? I thought you couldn't sell them based upon the contract you signed." He goes, "Oh, the dealer, the manufacturer buys them back from me."
Sure.
So they have a closed market, let's say, and when you control supply and you control demand, you can kind of control price.
Well,
So
you can make a direct correlation to whether it's pudgy penguins or whether it's what's the other big well-known one, the biggest one.
CryptoPunks,
Yeah.
CryptoPunks.
Right? Like those, have they came down from their highs, but at the same time, if you want to buy a CryptoPunk, what's the minimum? It's not a small amount.
Yeah, I think it's
Well,
like
and even this, somebody explained to me, a CryptoPunk right now minimum is about 200K
Yeah,
in ETH,
that's
but
wild.
the play is an ETH play.
Mhm.
Those meme coins are really just like the vehicle for ETH gains. If you really look at those projects, the reason why they've been successful is because their floor price doesn't go down.
Mhm.
What does that mean? It means that the people who hold them don't have to sell. That's the only thing it means. It means that everybody that holds them is rich enough to where they're like, I will not sell this below the ETH that I paid for it on principle. Like, and when you get a whole lot of people doing that, you see the floor price create this solid foundation. And then once the floor price of a project gets that solid foundation, you actually have bots that are programmed to come in and buy price items that are priced below the floor price automatically the second that they got on the market. So the stability of the community is what builds the platform for the price appreciation. And so if you go to the CryptoPunks, like nobody has to sell. They're all very high net worth folks and they don't need the money. And so what they do is they just wait for Ethereum to go up to, if Ethereum goes up to 10,000 a coin, a token, and I own 6 CryptoPunks, and I just maintain the floor price and I bump it up just a hair, the relative value of Ethereum that I'm taking has increased a very little amount. But the amount of money that I've made because the price of ETH across my collection is a tremendous amount. That's the game they play. It's really a play on the underlying asset, and that's why you saw a Solana pump when they started doing meme coins, and they started doing why? Well, because of this very same thing. It creates a market out of thin air, literally a market that can be very lucrative if you understand how to play it, right?
Yeah, it is. If you get into some of those markets, I would assume that guns are the same way, that there's a special version and vein of guns for certain reasons that most people that aren't
Arcs the same way, knives the same way, and once those people die, they become more valuable. Think about that.
Well, right,
Because
right.
it's
So Porsche just came out with a limited edition. Only 90 of these cars are being made, and it's an ode back to the fact that Ferdinand Porsche, one of the guys, obviously started the company. Something to do with I don't know if he's been dead 90 years or he's 90 years old. I don't know what it is, but they're only making 90 of them, right? So those particular vehicles it's the only way that they're worth less than the sticker price 5 or 10 years from now is if Bitcoin goes under 10,000, because everything will be worth nearly nothing, right, at that point.
yeah.
And so it's fascinating to watch. It's fascinating. The CryptoPunks thing, fascinating to me as well. Anything that has that type of a community that is that committed, I just find fascinating. For example, you know, I've generally speaking not had the nicest things to say about a particular coin, but the XRP community fascinates me. Why? In terms of the positive part of the community, there is not a more committed version of the crypto space in the XRP community. It's stunning, really. So you have to give some value to that. You certainly could make the case that if that community didn't exist, we wouldn't be at wherever we're at on the XRP price. Like, no way, right? Like, no way. So it really is.
And I'll tell you why I think they have that commitment, because I've kind of been there, done that. The technology is fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you ever, even early on, if you ever used XRP, compared it to every other crypto in the top 20, you were like, yeah, man, they're onto something. It's almost instant, and it's cheap, and it works. And, you know, there's nothing that was more fear-inducing early days of crypto than waiting for a transaction to clear. Like, that was a massive problem in crypto, that if you were in it early, you were kind of like, oh God. I remember one time, I can't remember what year it was, but it wasn't super early, but it was like kind of when we were pumping, 2017, 2016, something like that. And it took a day and a half for a Bitcoin transaction to clear. And I honestly thought I was experiencing the first break in the network. I was convinced of that. And I was on every forum, and I was on every chat room going, oh God, what did I do wrong? And double checking my work. And did I make a fat finger error? And it was just, the network was congested. That was it. And I just didn't understand the technology well enough to kind of know that could happen, because I'm going 10-minute settlement time. That's the rule. Well, guess what? It's the rule until it can be corrected to that rule. And it takes sometimes days, weeks to correct it being out of whack, you know. And so it's just, I think that the nature of the technology that we're dealing with is so complicated that the hurdle that we've really had as a community over the last decade has been trying to package it in a way that's simple, right? That is the complexity here. And even the success of MicroStrategy and the ETFs, I think, are a success on the back of packaging, right? Or kind of.
Well, that's what it's all about. It's the same thing I said when I got into it back in 2017 in January then, and I started talking a little publicly about it. And now, you know, I was like, man, listen, until Bitcoin, you know, I was like, yeah, it's great, be your own bank, but nobody wants to be their own bank. Everybody's like, oh, you know, everybody believes, oh, I need to be my own protection. You know, let me hold my gun, let me protect whatever. Nobody wants to. That's why, you know, the Patriot Act was passed, and it didn't have an issue and whatever, even though it, you know, took a lot of power away. And so when it comes down to it, you know, you have to make things where they're simple to use, or the populace is not going to do it. It doesn't matter how great the technology is. It doesn't matter. It's got to
be easy.
It has to be simple, easy to use. They don't have to think about it. But once you get that, then there you go. Then it's an easy sell, right?
Well, I would argue you don't even have to sell it at that point. People are using DeFi on Coinbase right now that don't even know what DeFi is. That's the point. Like, they literally don't know what DeFi is. You could say to them in a casual conversation, man, DeFi is really taken off, isn't it? And they'd go, what's DeFi? And then you could say, well, pull up your Coinbase app, and you go, see this lend borrow buttons, and they go, oh yeah, I use that all the time. And they would have no idea that they're participating in DeFi. That is the integration that we've been waiting for, and that we're here. I mean, it's happened. It's on Coinbase. Go test me if you think I'm lying. Go download the Coinbase app and
now
press
you're
lend.
Coinbase, huh?
I'm not shilling Coinbase. I do not. Listen, I am an equal opportunity off-ramp. I think exchanges are, let's just say, variety is the spice of life. Keep as many of those accounts open as you can, and you know, you get different advantages using different ones.
So
I got to jump to a call, guys, but are we doing this next week?
That's what I was going to say. You guys going to be here next week or not? Let me know.
It's what, the 23rd next
The
week?
24th.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, I'm not
24th.
gonna- I'm not going to be.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll
I'll
jump
be
on.
sledding and drinking hot chocolate, so you guys can think about me, and we can have a beards of
Pudgy
Bitcoin
penguin
in
things. You'll
spirit.
be doing pudgy penguin things. That's what you're
Speaking of pudgy penguins, Tom's gonna come up for a glass of hot cocoa, and we're gonna sit in our pudgy penguin outfits in our
and
front.
rub his hair for me. Okay.
Okay, I will. All right.
See you guys.
See you in a
See
couple
y'all.
weeks. All right, guys. Well, I mean, that's going to be it there. We're going to get out of here. It's been our hour. Thank you guys so much for joining. We love having you guys listening in our little conversations here and our thoughts. As you heard, we won't be back next Wednesday. That'll be Christmas Eve. So y'all celebrate nicely. Don't get hurt. All those fun things. Enjoy family. We'll be back, I guess, the following Wednesday after that. Tillman, have a great Christmas, man.
You too.
Enjoy your pudgy penguin outfit.
Just
I have
think
no
of me curled up next to the fire, reading your book. That's what I'll be doing the entire break. So that
curled up by the fire.
I'm curled up like a cat, buddy. I've lost a lot of weight. If you haven't noticed, I've got flexibility that I haven't had in decades. So
You got to keep doing what you're doing, man.
yeah, which is starving myself, which I don't agree with, and I'm fully rejecting at this point. So.
All right. Hey, listen, everybody. As always, remember the only thing you control, as Tillman knows oh so well, is how much you lose. We love y'all. Thank you so much for being a part of what we do here every week. We will see you in 2 weeks. Take care, everybody.
See you guys.
Trading tip: always manage risk before chasing gains.